name is Amelie, and the day my father died, he left behind a will that would change everything. But here's the thing. When the lawyer called us all together to read it, nobody wanted to be in that room. Not my siblings, not their kids, nobody. And I was standing there, the black sheep of the family, watching everyone avoid eye contact. You know what that feels like? If you're someone who loves stories about family secrets, unexpected twists, and a little bit of revenge, hit that subscribe button right now. So, let me take you back to the beginning, because this story, it's not what anyone expected. I grew up in what looked like the perfect family from the outside. Big house, expensive cars, vacations to places most people only dream about. My father was a successful businessman, my mother was the picture of elegance, and my two older brothers, they were the golden children, smart, athletic, charming, everything a parent could want. And then there was me. I don't know when exactly I became the family disappointment. Maybe I was born that way. My mom used to tell people I was different, and not in a good way. While my brothers played sports and brought home trophies, I was reading books in my room. While they networked at country club events, I was volunteering at the animal shelter downtown. My interests, my dreams, my entire existence seemed to irritate everyone around me. Family dinners were the worst. My father would ask my brothers about their accomplishments, laugh at their jokes, pat them on the back. Then his eyes would land on me, and it's like the temperature in the room would drop 10 degrees. And, Amelie, what have you been up to? Always that tone, like he was asking out of obligation, not interest. I learned to make myself small, to stay quiet, to not rock the boat. But you want to know the really messed up part? I convinced myself that if I just tried harder, if I could just figure out what they wanted from me, maybe they'd love me too. Maybe I'd finally belong. I was 23 when I finally left home. Not because I wanted to, but because I had to. My father and I had this massive fight. I don't even remember what started it. And he told me that if I couldn't respect his house and his rules, I should leave. So I did. I packed one suitcase, took the little money I had saved, and I left. My mother didn't try to stop me. My brothers were too busy to even say goodbye. I remember standing on the sidewalk outside that massive house, looking back, and thinking this was it. This was the moment I became truly alone. But here's the thing about hitting rock bottom. You've got nowhere to go but up. I moved to a different city, got a tiny apartment, worked 3 jobs just to make rent. It was hard, really hard. There were nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering why my own family couldn't love me. But I kept going. I started taking night classes, learning new skills, building something for myself. And that's when I started digging into our family history. Not because I was trying to find dirt, I was just trying to understand. Why was I so different? Why didn't I fit? I spent months going through old documents, talking to distant relatives my father had cut off, piecing together stories that had been buried for decades. And what I found? Look, it made my stomach turn. My father wasn't the self-made success story everyone believed. His first business partner, a man named Richard, had actually done most of the work, made most of the connections, brought in most of the money. But my father, through a series of legal maneuvers that were shady at best and probably illegal at worst, had pushed Richard out, took everything, left this man with nothing. Richard had a daughter. Her name was Claire. You see where this is going? I kept digging. Found old letters, old photographs, documented conversations. My father had been in love with Claire before he met my mother. They were engaged, actually. But Claire's family didn't have money, didn't have the right connections, so my father's parents pressured him to break it off and marry my mother instead, a woman from a wealthy family who could help boost his social standing. He did it. He left Claire, married my mother for her money and connections, and then destroyed her father's business to eliminate any reminder of his past. But here's what hit me like a truck. Claire had been pregnant when my father left her. I found the birth certificate, found the adoption records. Claire had a baby girl that she couldn't keep because she had no money, no support, nothing. That baby was adopted by a family across the country. That baby was me. My entire life was a lie. The woman I called mother wasn't my mother. My father had gotten his ex-fiancée pregnant, abandoned her, destroyed her father, and then years later, out of guilt or a twisted sense of responsibility or who knows what, he adopted me. But he never told anyone, not even me. He let me grow up thinking I was his biological daughter, watching everyone wonder why I was so different, why I didn't fit in. I didn't fit in because I wasn't supposed to be there. When I found out, I just sat in my apartment for hours, staring at these documents. Part of me wanted to confront him, part of me wanted to burn everything and pretend I never found out. But mostly, I felt this weird sense of relief. It wasn't my fault. It was never my fault. I wasn't broken or wrong or deficient. I was just a reminder of everything my father had done and tried to bury. I did something then that changed everything. I reached out to Claire. She was living in a small town, working at a library, living a simple, quiet life. When I called her and told her who I was, she went silent for so long I thought she'd hung up. Then she started crying. We talked for 4 hours that first night. She told me everything, how much she'd loved my father, how devastated she was when he left, how giving me up for adoption was the hardest thing she'd ever done, but she had no choice. I thought about you every single day, she told me. I named you Amelie. I don't know if your adoptive parents kept the name or if it's just a coincidence, but I named you Amelie because it means hardworking, and I wanted you to grow up strong. They had kept the name. The one thing my father couldn't take away from me was the name my real mother gave me. Claire and I started meeting regularly. She was everything I'd ever wanted in a mother. Kind, supportive, genuinely interested in who I was. We'd have coffee and talk for hours. She came to my graduation when I finally finished my degree. She was there when I got my first real job in my field. She was the family I'd been looking for my whole life. And I never told my father I knew. Not once. I built a life for myself, a good life. I had friends who actually liked me, a career I was proud of, a mother who loved me. I went to family gatherings when I was invited, which wasn't often, and I played my role. The quiet one, the disappointment, the black sheep. Let them think what they wanted. But I was documenting everything. Every condescending comment from my brothers, every dismissive look from my father, every time my legal mother pretended I didn't exist unless there were other people around. I kept records of family finances I could access, business dealings that were questionable, promises made and broken. I wasn't planning revenge exactly. I was just gathering information. Knowledge is power, right? My father got sick 2 years ago. Cancer. Aggressive and fast-moving. The family rallied around him, or at least they rallied around his money. My brothers suddenly became very concerned with inheritance, with making sure they were in the will, with positioning themselves as the devoted sons. I visited him in the hospital a few times. We didn't talk much. What was there to say? But during one visit, when it was just the two of us, he looked at me with these tired eyes and said, "You turned out better than I expected." That was it. That was the closest thing to a compliment or acknowledgement I ever got from him. He died on a Tuesday morning. I got the call from one of my brothers, not because he cared if I knew, but because the lawyer says you need to be at the will reading. The day of the reading, I walked into that conference room and felt every eye on me. My brothers were there with their wives and their kids, my nephews and nieces who barely knew I existed. My legal mother was there, dressed in black, playing the grieving widow. The lawyer was a stern-looking man named Mr. Patterson, who'd worked with my father for 30 years. "Thank you all for coming," Mr. Patterson said, shuffling papers on the table. "I know this is a difficult time, but we need to execute Mr. Thompson's final wishes." He opened the folder containing my father's will. I could see it was thick, lots of pages, lots of stipulations. My brothers were practically salivating. My legal mother had this satisfied smile on her face like she already knew what was coming. "Before I begin," Mr. Patterson said, looking directly at me, "I need to inform everyone that there are some unusual elements to this will. Mr. Thompson left very specific instructions about how this information should be presented and in what order." The room got quiet, uncomfortable quiet. "I'm going to start with the primary estate. The house, the cars, the liquid assets, and the business holdings. These have a combined estimated value of approximately $47 million. My brothers sat up straighter. $47 million. Split 3 ways would still be life-changing money. "Mr. Thompson has left these assets," Mr. Patterson paused, glanced at me again, then back at the papers, "in their entirety to his daughter, Amelie Thompson." The room exploded. My brothers started yelling. My legal mother turned white as a sheet. My sisters-in-law looked like they might actually faint. I just sat there, perfectly calm, because I'd known this was coming. You see, about 6 months before he died, my father had called me, asked to meet for coffee, just the two of us. I almost said no, what was the point? But something made me go. We sat in this little cafe downtown, and he ordered us both coffee, and then he just looked at me for a long time before speaking. "I know you found out," he said quietly, "about Claire, about everything." My heart stopped. "How?" "Claire called me a few years ago. She wanted to know if she could meet you, if I would allow it. She told me you'd reached out to her." He stirred his coffee, not meeting my eyes. "I told her it was your decision, not mine." We sat in silence for a minute. "I was a coward," he said finally. "I made choices that hurt people, and then I spent my whole life trying to pretend those choices didn't matter. But they did. And the worst part is, I hurt you most of all." I didn't know what to say. "You deserved better," he continued. "You deserved the truth. You deserved a real family. You deserved to be loved for who you are, not resented for being a reminder of my mistakes. I can't fix what I did, but I can do one thing right." That's when he told me about the will. Back in the conference room, Mr. Patterson was still talking, trying to calm everyone down. "If I may continue," he said loudly, and the room gradually quieted, "there are conditions to this inheritance." Of course there were. "Amelie will inherit everything, but she must use a portion of the funds, specifically $10 million, to establish a trust for Claire Morrison." My legal mother gasped. She knew that name. "Additionally," Mr. Patterson went on, "the family home will be sold, and the proceeds will be donated to organizations supporting adoption services and single mothers." My oldest brother stood up. "This is insane. He can't just—" "Sit down, please," Mr. Patterson said firmly. "I'm not finished." He pulled out another document. This one was handwritten. Mr. Thompson also left a letter to be read aloud at this meeting. He insisted on this. Mr. Patterson cleared his throat and began reading. "To my sons, Marcus and James, you are receiving nothing from me because I gave you everything in life and you learned nothing. You are cruel, entitled, and shallow. You treated your sister with contempt because I taught you to. That's on me. But you're grown men now, and you could have chosen differently. You didn't. Build your own fortunes. Maybe you'll appreciate what you have." My brothers looked like they'd been slapped. "To Patricia," that was my legal mother, "you knew. You knew Amelie wasn't biologically yours, and you treated her like an intruder in her own home. You let your sons bully her because it made you feel superior. You are receiving nothing because you deserve nothing. The jewelry I gave you over the years is yours to keep. That's all. Patricia was crying now, but they weren't sad tears, they were angry tears. And to Amelie, Mr. Gutterson's voice softened a bit, I can't take back the years I stole from you. I can't undo the pain I caused. You deserved a father who was proud of you, and instead, you got me. But watching you build a life for yourself, watching you succeed despite everything I put you through, that's the only thing I've ever done that I'm actually proud of. I'm proud that you survived me. Use this money to live the life you deserve. And tell Claire I'm sorry. I should have said it years ago, but I was too much of a coward. Tell her I'm sorry. The room was dead silent. Mr. Patterson folded the letter carefully. That concludes the reading of the will. Amelie, if you'll stay for a moment, we need to discuss the next steps. Everyone else, you're free to go. Nobody moved at first. Then my oldest brother stood up, knocking his chair back so hard it fell over. This is bullshit! We'll contest this! You can try, Mr. Patterson said calmly, but I should inform you that Mr. Thompson and I went over this will extensively. It's airtight. Any attempt to contest it will result in an automatic forfeiture of any future claim to the estate. And I mean any claim. My brother stormed out. My legal mother followed, shooting me a look of pure hatred. Their families trailed behind, whispering furiously. And then it was just me and Mr. Patterson. Are you okay? He asked. I nodded, even though I wasn't sure what I was feeling. Relief? Vindication? Grief for the father I never really had? There's one more thing, Mr. Patterson said, pulling out a small envelope. He asked me to give this to you privately. Inside was a single photograph. It was old, faded at the edges. It showed a young man and a young woman, both smiling, his arm around her shoulders. I recognized my father, must have been in his early 20s. The woman was beautiful, laughing at something off camera. It was Claire, my mother. On the back, in my father's handwriting, the person I should have been brave enough to be. I'm sorry I wasn't. I called Claire that night and told her everything, about the will, about the trust, about the letter. We both cried. Sad tears, happy tears, relieved tears, all mixed together. What are you going to do with all that money? She asked me. I had been thinking about that. I'm going to do something good with it, something that matters. Maybe start a foundation for kids in foster care or fund scholarships for people who aged out of the system. I don't know exactly yet, but something that helps people who feel as alone as I used to feel. That sounds perfect, Claire said. Your father would be, well, he'd be proud isn't the right word, but I think he'd approve. I don't care if he'd approve, I said, and I meant it. I'm doing this for me, for the person I became despite him, not because of him. The next few months were a whirlwind. Lawyers, accountants, financial advisors, all helping me navigate this massive inheritance. I sold the house like my father requested. It brought in another $6 million that went straight to the charities he'd specified. I set up the trust for Claire, made sure she'd be comfortable for the rest of her life, and I started my foundation. We help kids who've been adopted or in foster care get access to therapy, education, job training, whatever they need to build stable lives. We connect them with mentors who actually care. We give them the support system I never had growing up. My brothers tried to contest the will, like they said they would. It went nowhere. Mr. Patterson was right. It was airtight. Eventually, they gave up and went back to their lives, probably blaming me for their problems instead of taking any responsibility. I haven't spoken to any of them in over a year. I don't plan to. But I did visit my father's grave once. It was about 6 months after he died, after everything had settled down. I stood there, looking at his headstone, trying to figure out what to feel. I don't forgive you, I said out loud, not caring if anyone heard me. What you did to Claire, to me, to everyone, I don't forgive that. But I understand now that you were just a broken person who broke other people, and I'm choosing not to be like you. The wind picked up, rustling the leaves on the trees nearby. For a second, I could almost pretend it was an answer. I turned and walked away. Claire was waiting for me in the car. We were going to lunch, just the two of us, like we did every Sunday now. That will my father left, the one nobody had the courage to read, it changed everything, but not in the way my family expected. They thought it would be about money and property and who got what, and on the surface, sure, it was. But really, it was about truth, about finally acknowledging the damage that had been done, about giving me the one thing my father had never given me when he was alive, validation that it wasn't my fault. I wasn't the problem. I never was. And that knowledge, that's worth more than $47 million. Though I'll be honest, having the $47 million doesn't hurt. These days, I'm happy. Actually, genuinely happy. I have work that matters, a mother who loves me, and the freedom to be exactly who I am. I still have moments where I feel that old familiar ache, wishing things had been different, wishing I'd had a real family growing up. But those moments are getting fewer and farther between. Because I did get a real family. I just had to find it on my own terms. And sometimes, late at night, I think about my father in that hospital bed, looking at me with tired eyes, saying I turned out better than he expected. I think that was his way of saying he was proud. It wasn't much, but maybe it was all he had to give. I'll never know for sure, and maybe that's okay. If you made it this far, thanks for listening to my story. Next video drops tomorrow. Like and subscribe to the channel to follow more stories of family and revenge.